What I would like to do is simply share with you all a updated version of the presentation I shared with the board on last Wednesday. After that, obviously, we will. I want to hear concerns. I do have thoughts and concerns. I do have staff in a room that are taking notes and gathering input and feedback. As you know, and you'll see in the timeline here a little bit, this is sort of the kickoff to the conversations around this. So, with that, I'm gonna begin. First of all, I want to remind everyone that this is not a sudden thing. This is not something that came dropped from the sky. This district has been engaged in what we have termed the Brighter Tomorrow Plan for the last 2.5 years with the following goals in mind. One is to encourage community engagement, support, and partnerships by proactively responding to education's rapidly changing landscape, to adapting to the changing needs of students, families, and educators, and by promoting continuous improvement. We started off with phase one of the plan, and that was a transformation of our middle schools. And so now, instead of having what we call neighborhood middle schools, what we have are interest-based middle schools, where students choose to go to school based on their interests, not based on where they live. The impetus for that was there's a school down the street that is named the Arts Academy at Summit, where students, regardless of their economic situation or really their academic situation, have performed above those expectations because they are engaged in a curricula that really speaks to their learning interests. And so everything that we have tried to do here has been to build off the strength of students and not their weaknesses. The second phase, which started full implementation this year, is the transformation of our elementary schools. And so, as you can see here, what we have done is we've created two types of elementary schools. K2, reading and math preparatory schools, where students will engage in what we call heavy doses of learning the fundamentals for reading and math, followed by 3-5 leadership schools, where students then begin to really begin the process of scaffolding 21st century learning skills, global learning, leadership skills. Those schools are going very well. One pause here, and I would say, is that through this reconfiguration at the elementary level, we were able to save the district somewhere around $1.5 million simply by readjusting our student-teacher ratios. And so that was a major benefit for this, but it's also what's best for students. Now, when I gave my initial, vision plan to our district back in February of 12, phase 3 was always in the conversation. We were very specific that we would start at the elementary level, looking at everything at the elementary and middle school level, but ultimately we would have a conversation about high school. And so what we're doing today is consistent with what we said 2 years ago, that it was really important for us to take a hard look at what we were doing at the high school level. That was not just strictly a curricula-based analysis, that was not just a programming-based analysis, but similar to what we did at both levels, the whole gamut was open for discussion. So, what is the changing landscape? What is going on here that we are trying to respond to? Since the closing of Sowers and Lincoln in '76, the city of Canton's population has decreased by 30,000 residents. Now, what happens when and why? More particularly why? Well, I'm a kid who was raised by All of you know I was raised here. I was raised by a Hoover mom. Okay, and so, you know, Hoover mom, she was able to get her 30 years of retirement in. There's three sisters actually. Some of you know the three sisters, and one of them at the end caught the tail end of it right before they really stopped with the whole retirement package. My point is that as jobs leave, residents leave, and as residents leave, particularly those who with a good tax base, it makes a difference in the enrollment in the district. And so what you have here is our changing enrollment. And so as you can see from this chart here, in 2002, the district had 10,900 students. Today, 8,580, and we're projecting 8,040 5 years from now. The light shaded green shows you that our high school enrollment has also taken a decrease, where we've gone from 2,960 in 2002 that we're projecting now at just over 2,000 in 5 years from now. In addition to the fact that you lose residents, in addition to the fact that you lose enrollment, that has a direct impact on the district's finances. So when you study it, the reality of it is our tax valuations are down $3 million, and that's based on the assessments of the properties. As property values go down, that means that the levies that we pass don't yield the amount of money necessarily to continue to support the district at certain levels. We are what we call on the guarantee. I want to explain what this means. The state has a law right now that says that certain school districts can be protected from a drop in enrollment. They call it the guarantee. For the last 2 years, the Canton City School District has been protected by this guarantee. And so when students leave the district, they continue to fund us at certain levels, even though technically they could subtract close to $5,500 for every one of those students that leaves. Now, when Governor Kasich took office, one of the things that he made clear was that districts that were on the guarantee need to prepare for not being on the guarantee. We don't know exactly what that means. We don't know when that's going to be. We don't know how he's going to do it. But we know that our ability to look to the state to shield us from those enrollment drops, I think is going to be short-lived. And so that plus the fact that we continue to look and be reliant on what the state is doing by way of their funding, and it is my understanding that the governor continues and wants to change the funding formula again for schools, and I don't know what that means. And so all of these are unknown variables, but what we do know is that they do ultimately impact us. And so the bottom line is that while Canton has, and a lot of you are involved in a lot of conversations, I am too, about the prospects of great things happening here in Canton. The oil and shale, the Hall of Fame Village, those things are certainly good news, exciting news for Canton. I don't anticipate that we're going to find ourselves at a level, both fiscally and enrollment-wise, anywhere close to where we were just in 2002. So now what do we have? So now we have these what I call competing interests, and I want to define that too, because see, Um, a lot of people talk about, you know, whether or not it's either or. But for me, it's about competing interests, which means they both have validity. All the interests have validity. The question is what, you know, ultimately, what do you decide to do? And so on one hand of the competing interests is what we call the efficiency. When you have drops in enrollment, you have drops in efficiency. You have less usage of space. You have more staff than you need. You have you're supporting programs that could be consolidated. You have that on one hand. But then on the other hand, you have necessity and culture and law. And I want to define those. Necessity. So in Canton, if you draw the east and the west, a lot of the population and enrollment population is on the west side of town. So you can't just close every school building on the east side of town, even though they're not at capacity. And so necessity says you must do something. You must keep the school buildings open, even though really they're not operating at full capacity. Culture, kind of the theme of what's going on in the city right now, right? Nobody wants their school to close. And so as a result of nobody wanting their school to close, you keep them open, okay? Even though you have this competing interest of efficiency on the other hand, okay? And the legitimate reasons, by the way. And then finally the law. There's a law that creates a disincentive for school districts to close buildings. Because if they do, then they must offer them to competitor schools and fair market value. And so as a result, you know, nobody wants to see the competitor come and sit on your land and take your kids, etc. And so there's a disincentive for us to close it. So you have these competing interests between this efficiency and then necessity, culture, and law. So all of that being said, I made a recommendation to the board to consolidate to one high school, effective next year. Here are the bullet point reasons. Obviously, each of these reasons has more depth to them. I'm not going to read them all to you. I'm going to take the time because everyone seems to be curious about the economic efficiency. We'll have that conversation a little bit. But the bottom line is that as we view the reason to consolidate to one, we believe that we will increase our opportunities for our kids in all of these areas, and believe that we can operate a better system for kids. And I want to say that to be really clear and really honest. This for us is not about the adults. It's not about the adults. It's about what we think is ultimately best for the students. Okay? And do we understand and know that part of that is, you know, pride and understanding and being at Temkin, yes, but there are other things, just like I have two kids, they can't see everything that I can see, you know, and I can see some scenarios where, you know, we can really get better as a school district by going to one school.